Hi everyone, Doug Wade at Pure Social TV. We're also partnering with Citizen Media News, and we're here with a very special guest, Tracy Beanz from UncoverDC.
Yeah.
And Tracy, you've been quite busy and with a lot of citizen journalism. I want to say that you kind of paved the way many years ago.
Well, thank you.
For some citizen journalism.
Thanks.
And we're seeing so many people now, coming forward, doing their own work, doing their own investigations, publishing that information. It's an interesting dynamic because we have this fight, right, against big media, big tech.
Yep.
Right? We have to become our own source of news.
Absolutely.
And it has to be based on fact. Right?
Yes.
No spin.
No spin.
Here's the fact. Decide for yourself, right?
100%. Yeah, and I've actually stopped using the term citizen journalism because I think that there's nothing else to compare it to.
Right.
And I've kind of created an entire company based around what I was doing on Twitter, for years now. So we're journalists.
We're journalists.
And that's it. Even somebody who goes out there, records their congressman, that's a journalist.
Yeah.
For a long time, the legacy media used the term citizen journalist to kind of downgrade
Good point.
what journalists do. I think 9 of the 10 normal everyday people out there are better than any of the canned crap that they feed you on a daily. So
just because you're not getting a paycheck from some big corporate, three-letter media company, right?
yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you rather not get that paycheck? I mean, I would much rather work for a voluntary contribution from the people who find what your work valuable and scrape by than sell out to one of these, even there are some of them on the right as well. I mean, it's really hard to find good information nowadays. So
yeah, we could mention that network, couldn't we? They've been kind of questionable.
Potentially. It all depends on how far you want to go, Doug. But yeah, it's been fun though, and it's been a learning experience. We're always trying to get better, and we're pushing ahead.
So your focus is primarily around, you've got a lot of things you're doing, but primarily you're talking more about election integrity. That's a very important topic right now in our country.
Yeah, I mean, ever since right after the November 3rd election, I kind of dove right into it. Had the unfortunate house fire, but I needed something to distract me, and there was no keeping me from this. So, I mean, it was 20-hour days every single day. Worked real closely with General Flynn and his team, and everybody kind of melded together, worked together, got all the information in. I mean, we opened up an email box and asked for any first-hand accounts of whatever anybody saw. We were flooded with 13, 14, then 15,000 emails a day.
Wow.
And we had a whole thing going on behind the scenes to filter through all that, vet it, make sure it was correct, get it to the right people, to the right attorneys, get it into affidavits, and push the courts, which never ended up working, but it was a valiant effort. And now we're covering the audits and what's going on in all the different states right now with audits.
So Maricopa just got through that,
Yep.
and now it's sort of traveling around, like Georgia, I know, is talking about their audits, and it's starting to get, groundswell here. So what do you think the next step is for Maricopa County now that they've completed the audit?
Accountability, and if they need to change or add any legislation, quickly to do so. And they're also really serious about potentially decertifying the results of the election, because the first line item of Dr. Shiva's analysis, 17,126 duplicate ballots were cast in the election, where the margin of victory was 10,000 something votes. Regardless of where those votes went, it doesn't really matter. Once you have that, you don't have a valid election anymore. And that's on top of everything else that we learned. UncoverDC reporter Wendy Mahoney has covered this entire series. There's an intricate breakdown of every single report and what it means on UncoverDC.com, because it's really important. And so, like, in the beginning of the year, I said the two most important issues facing our country right now are election integrity and COVID or health freedom. And so we've really thrown all of our eggs into that basket because very few outlets are really spending the time to cover it right.
It's interesting how they used COVID to get across what their agenda was, which was to steal the election.
Yeah, and once they did that, it makes it a lot more easy for them to do the nonsense they're doing now with these fake vaccine mandates with no enforcement mechanism behind them.
That's right. I have some family in Maricopa County, so I was following it pretty closely. And we're like everybody, we're just like hanging on. Like, when's this going to happen? When's it going to be finished?
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah, there needs to be a next, because for years it's been no accountability for anything ever. And then you look at some of the January 6th guys and you see what they're going through. for not even misdemeanors in some cases, and you're like, well, something's just not right here. You know, they're flagrantly breaking law in federal elections, and they're skating. So hopefully Abramovich does the right thing.
So is it down to the judicial system now? Is that what we're looking for with trying to kind of implement the next steps, like how we would actually address, keep them accountable?
Well, yeah, for the most part, you know, we need attorney generals and U.S. attorneys on a federal level. I have no hope there, but, you know, we need like an attorney general like Abramovich, who's running for office, he's running for Senate, he's invested, he's done the right thing so far. You know, he sent out the letter to get the routers and everything from Maricopa County. He's going to withhold all their funding. They can't have that.
There you go. That's a good start.
Yeah, so
Cut
now,
off the funding.
yeah, and he was going to do it, and now he's investigating all of what was handed to him on a silver platter. I mean, you know, they're handing him
well done too.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's never been done before. I mean, this is the first time. So
What was the 57,000 number? Is that like duplicate ballots or from the mail-in ballots? Where did they get that number?
There's
17,000. There was another one, was a 50+ thousand. Right?
There's a bunch of different numbers out there. All told, basically in totality, we're looking at probably somewhere between 300 and 400,000 votes that have a question mark over them.
Okay.
Whether or not they're, you know, tip images that were corrupted and they can't read the ballots, whether they were duplicate ballots, whether they were from the canvas.
The pixels, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it was, and that's not even talking about the cybersecurity issues they found. So it's a hot mess. I mean, you can't. It's a hot mess.
I think they were counting on that. They covered so much ground with trying to overtake and steal this election that they figured there was going to be a lot of time to try to go through and pick up all the different points, and they're hoping to run the clock. I think that's kind of where they're at.
That's how they do everything. So if you look at it, Dr. Shiva was able to identify that most of those duplicates came in after November 3rd. They picked up after November 3rd. Why would that be? I mean, why? Oh, and those signatures weren't as readable as, you know, the ones previously. And then, you know, the paper. Focus on the paper, guys, because I had a panel with Joe Flynn yesterday. It was him and I. We were talking about Maricopa County because he sits on the board of the America Project, who funded a large portion of this audit.
Okay, good.
He was sitting with me, and we were talking about how Jovan Pulitzer's paper audit has not even been revealed yet. Almost, I think it was 80% of the paper used in the Maricopa County election was not proper paper. They didn't use vote secure paper.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our license, our driver's license, we carry, I mean, like, you know, passes to leave the country. I mean, all that stuff is so, you cannot duplicate that stuff. But then when it came to the election, oh, well, that's just all thrown out the window. You know?
Well, yeah, and that, you see that.
No verification, no.
Zero verification, the wrong paperweight, bleed through, incorrect, you know, score lines to be able for the scanner to be able to read the votes properly. And Mark Fincham, who's running for Secretary of State now, has come out with his own paper. He partnered with a company. They came out with this beautiful paper. There's a guy running around here with a copy of it, actually. And this is what we need. We need to go back to the basics and confirm things up.
Let's cover health freedom. What kind of things are you finding right now when it comes to the mandates? I mean, it's affecting us from every level around the country with our schools.
Yep.
Right? People that are in the military obviously are now affected. People that are in any kind of, well, it seems like some people in the federal government, it doesn't affect them at all. Like, they don't have to have private mandates, but everybody else.
Yeah, it's exemptions for thee and not, or for me and not for thee now. Yeah, you know, the whole COVID tragedy, and I call it a tragedy not just because there are people who have been sick and have died, but it has really touched every single human being on this planet. Everyone, from newborns to elderly.
We lost someone really close to our family.
You did? I'm sorry.
In February, yeah.
It's a shame because, you know, I've dealt with a lot of families who have loved ones in the hospital and come to me like they're treating my loved one as though they're in prison. I can't, they're hiding their phone across the room so I can't talk to them.
Cut off, yeah.
Yeah, and
Isolation.
they're giving them treatments that they don't want against their wishes. You know, it's terrible. And doing that is draining in and of itself. There's not been one person we've been able to save once they're in that hospital. We're in America.
It's like a death sentence.
It is.
When did our hospitals become a death sentence?
The hospital is a death sentence, and not only because they're getting in there, it's when, you know, the disease course has progressed so much that they're very, very ill. It's the treatment that they're receiving in the hospital.
Yeah, it just amplifies the disease.
It's terrible. And, you know, there are known proven early therapeutic medications, and even in late stage disease course, there are medications that can save people, and they're not being dosed. They're not being, given out. They're not being. The pharmacies, even in the hospitals, if an ICU doc prescribes ivermectin, a pharmacy in the hospital will refuse to fill that prescription.
Well, because they're being threatened. First of all, they're being incentivized financially to push the treatments that are proven treatments, and they're being threatened to try to use something that is effective and working.
The problem with that argument, and I've done this with a few docs before, is that, look, the NIH neither recommends for or against ivermectin in the treatment of COVID-19. It is not a recommendation against using ivermectin. They say nothing either way.
Okay. Is that across the board for the whole country?
It's the NIH that put that guideline out, yeah. Hydroxychloroquine, on the other hand, they recommended against the use of because they used chloroquine and they did the studies wrong and whatever. But I actually testified in front of the South Carolina Senate 2 weeks ago about ivermectin because we were not able to get our pharmacies to prescribe that or to fill those prescriptions. And we had doctors from South Carolina and all over the country. We had Dr. Peter McCullough, we had Dr. Peter Corey testify in front of this committee saying, yes, because they kept on asking, what can we do to help this? Is it a liability issue? Is there a malpractice worry from doctors? Dr. Corey said, a malpractice worry? This medicine is safer than Tylenol.
Right. It's been proven.
Yeah. Who's suing someone over using ivermectin? I mean,
yeah.
Nobody's
with that case.
Right. Nobody's getting sick from ivermectin. So, we did get somewhere. There's studies being done. Yeah. So, we'll get places with this. But it is. There's a lot of information out there, and not all of it is good information, on any side. So it's just filtering through all that, and we just put out a PDF called Uncover COVID, and it's broken down by section, and each section has links and a preview of the article. Over 300 articles that we've written on COVID-19 since 2019 or early 2020. So if people want to debate and want sourced information, it's there.
That's excellent. That's really excellent. Yeah, we'll have to look that up on the website. So
yeah,
UncoverDC and how
just Uncover COVID.
Uncover COVID.
You could just Google Uncover COVID. It's on Script. You can download it.
Okay.
It's got, I don't know, I think right now it's a little close to 30,000 downloads, which makes my heart sing.
Yeah, nice.
Because it's free.
We need that to grow, so we'll put it on Pure Social.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, anything else you want to bring the audience, share?
Stay positive. Stay positive. Keep chugging along. If not you, who? Don't give up. Don't get downtrodden. It's easy to get downtrodden now, but we got to keep fighting.
Yeah, we're in a war. You got to keep at it.
How are you feeling about the congressional race there in Myrtle Beach?
7. Got some surprises, I think. We'll see. It's definitely not going to be Tom Rice.
How do you like Mark McBride?
Mark McBride is a nice guy.
He used to be the mayor, right?
Yes, he did, of Myrtle Beach. Now, I, as a state executive committee woman for the Republican Party, cannot comment one way or another on any of the primary candidates. It's just not fair. So I stay very neutral. Mark McBride is a very nice man. Ken Richardson is a very nice man. All of the candidates that have stepped forward to run are very nice. I will go. Tom Rice said some not so nice things about us just recently, so in my opinion, on top of everything else he's done, he can go scratch.
We have a nationwide coalition that I'll share with you on the air. It's a plug for us too. But we work with Restore Liberty. And, we've got General Flynn on board. We've got Darren Gobb, who's the national director. We've got over 30 states represented now, and we're building a coalition state to state to state with its own infrastructure to help constitutional conservatives get into office.
Fantastic.
So it's really taken off.
That's fantastic.
There's a huge need for it. We know that at every level. We're kind of focused on school boards and judicial, but we could cover anybody. It could be governor races, it could be mayors, it could be whatever.
I'll tell you a little story.
RestoreLiberty.org.
That's fantastic. Back when we were first Ron Paul run, 2008, 2009, and then the second time he ran. my girl Gigi, who you met, started something called Liberty Candidate. And what it was basically was what you guys are doing, but we had a vetting process. I mean, you had to answer questions.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think they got it down to just a few questions, but it's like a constitutional consent form. If a candidate will sign the form, they'll start to get, basically the funding and endorsement.
That's fantastic.
To get them around to win. So,
Great.
we're up against a huge challenge when it comes to financing races. I mean, it's not fair.
No, it's not
the way
fair.
they're getting all this money coming in from international sources versus the local community. So,
Well, understand too that face-to-face conversations with candidates works. Knocking on doors absolutely works.
It does.
And people can tell when you're bullshitting them now. You can't get that past people anymore.
You
So
can't. Nope. Well, I mean, the 2016 election was a good.
what?
The 2016 election was a really good result.
Oh yeah.
Trump won it.
Yeah.
He had the numbers, right?
Yep.
He didn't spend a whole lot of money. He had the numbers.
Yep.
They couldn't refute it.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah. Well, good for you for doing that. I'm gonna look that up. Everybody go check it out.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Tracy.
Thanks.